This is a big day in the contentious history of abortion in America, and let's break it down a little bit with ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer, who covers the court, and ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks, and we're going to further discuss this new law. So, Devin, let me first go to you. The big picture here. So, a lot of people are hearing this saying, what? This sounds like we've taken steps backward in the women's right to choose an abortion. What does this bill do, and what's the reasoning behind it?
Yeah, Terry, let's go straight to the text of the law, SB 8. It says a physician may not perform an abortion if a fetal heartbeat is detected. And the law goes on to define that as any embryonic cardiac activity, a very broad definition, usually happening about 5 or 6 weeks, as we've been talking about. It's effectively a ban on almost all abortions in Texas, and that's because 90%, 85 to 90%, you see it there, are performed after that 6-week window. Now, most other states that have tried this kind of ban have been blocked in the courts. So what makes Texas unique? Well, it's the wrinkle in how it's enforced. And you were just talking about it there with Alexis McGill-Johnson. And it's this mechanism that basically says the state won't enforce the law, but average citizens will, pitting them against each other, deputizing everyday Texanians to bring civil lawsuits against anyone who the law says aids or abets an abortion. And that has had a chilling effect, not only on the clinics and the process in the state, which we're already starting to see today, but it's had an evasive effect around the Supreme Court's precedent, Terry. As you and I have talked about, it has also complicated here this emergency request for an injunction to block this law, because there are a lot of questions. Who would an injunction enjoin? Who has been hurt by this law? Have any lawsuits even been filed yet at this early stage? Those are the questions the justices at the Supreme Court are likely wrestling with right now and may well answer in the coming hours, Terry, but so far they haven't, and that's why this law is in effect.
Absolutely. Well done there, Devin. The heart of this law, of course, goes to the right to choose an abortion, guaranteed by the 14th Amendment under the Constitution, affirmed by the Supreme Court in Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. But as Devin just explained, this law is actually all tangled up in legal procedure, deliberately so. They wrote it so that it would be. So, Mary Alice, President Biden's described the law as extreme. He said his administration is going to protect the constitutional right established in Roe v. Wade. But what steps can the White House really take moving forward?
Well, Terry, the Department of Justice can take a more advocacy role here. We can see them continue to challenge some of these state laws, not only in Texas, but around the country, where we've seen state legislatures try to put in more restrictions. But really, we're not sure the White House is super excited to do that, because they're not sure they have the votes on the Supreme Court. They are nervous about which cases are going to make it in front of those 9. And so I think instead, this law in Texas is going to reignite a push on Capitol Hill for more of a legislative fix. We've seen Democrats say there should just be more federal law in place to help standardize abortion access across the country. And I really think that's where we're going to see this conversation going under this Democratic White House that's nervous about a conservative-leaning Supreme Court.
Right. The votes have changed quite a bit in recent years. So, Devin, the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, responded to this new law, and they said, quote, it actively encourages private individuals to act as bounty hunters by awarding them at least $10,000 if they are successful. Now, Devin, I want to ask you who can bring a suit, but also the impact of something like this. This is, they describe it as bounty hunters, but there's no question the law is designed to encourage mothers to turn in their daughters, neighbors to spy on neighbors, or whomever, and that has a profound effect.
Yeah, as unusual or perhaps even hyperbolic as it may sound, Terry, I mean, bounty hunters, vigilante justice, pitting neighbor against neighbor, as you say, that is actually the case here. We're not exaggerating the facts of what is happening in Texas. It was designed that way. As you said earlier, it is very cynical. In fact, some of the law's supporters even conceded it today in an interview. But again, the facts, anyone in the state with reason to believe a fellow resident has aided or abetted an abortion after 6 weeks in Texas can bring one of these civil lawsuits. And Terry, I got to tell you, one of the extraordinary facets of this measure also is there are no penalties in there for false claims. So even if you bring this lawsuit, even if it gets tossed out, you're challenging that Uber driver, your sister, your brother, the physician at the neighborhood abortion clinic. There is no penalty for a false claim if it's tossed out in the end, and that's why those abortion providers, Planned Parenthood and others, saying this is having a major chilling effect, because these lawsuits, the more this goes on, are very likely to proliferate and just bog down the entire process.
And the law designed to encourage those lawsuits and ruin abortion providers and those who help. Mary Alice, a political question. President Bill Clinton used to say his line was that abortion in America should be safe, legal, and rare. And politically, that seemed to be a sweet spot. But polls do show that a majority of Americans want to keep the core right to choose an abortion. Some providers and attorneys are against this law. They're still holding out hope for a Supreme Court injunction. So what does the legal and political battlefield look like ahead?
Well, generally, Terry, those that are running for federal office on either side of the aisle don't want to deal with abortion politics. I mean, the reality is, like you said, the majority of Americans, especially women, want there to be some legal access to abortion. Even Republicans. Sure, when you ask nuanced questions about what those restrictions should be, you get nuanced answers. But it has not historically, especially in recent history, been in Republicans' favor to have large-scale conversations about massive restrictions to abortion on the table. And so I think you're going to start to see some federal Republicans, so I'm talking about senators, members of Congress, and then people that are also representing large states, start to get a little bit squirmy here. They know that this is not generally an issue in their favor. I think that we're going to see Democrats, on the other hand, push this. They know that they can start to swing some of those suburban women who tend to get frustrated when Republicans go to an extreme on this issue. And so I imagine that we're going to kind of see one side start to talk about this a lot and one side start to hide from it.
Interesting. So, Devin, finally, take a big look at the beat we share at the Supreme Court. What does this mean for the future of Roe versus Wade?
Well, anti-abortion rights advocates, Terry, are celebrating this. They say this is the beginning of the end of Roe versus Wade today. They're talking a lot about lives that they are saving because of this Texas law. But that's not quite accurate when it comes to Roe versus Wade. And you know this. No court in this case, any of these legal challenges involving the Texas law, have addressed the central core question. Are pre-viability bans on abortion in this country unconstitutional? In fact, that question is before the Supreme Court later this year in a separate case out of Mississippi, but it hasn't been answered yet. And even if the Supreme Court weighs in on this debate over an injunction in Texas in the next few days or later today, that won't resolve that question either. So there is a long road ahead for abortion this year, and still yet for this law in Texas, Terry.
All right, lots to come. ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer on the Supreme Court, ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks on politics and other things. Thanks both for that.
Thanks, Terry.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.